Hi, I'm Noel, and this is another developer log for Straycloud, pixel art action adventure game that I'm building in GameMaker. I've been building for a few years now. If you haven't watched any of these before, I always say I'm going to try to keep it short. I will once again endeavor to do that. I've got a couple things to go over. It's been a while since I've done one of these. And I've always intended from the start to do them more often, but it's always just kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit because I had other things to do. But it's important to do documentation. I think, anyone who is interested in looking at process work for any kind of a project is interested in probably viewing the warts and all version of whatever's being worked on. So the caveat here, as always, but probably more so now, is that the current state that this build is in, it's not even a build, it's just running in the virtual build inside of GameMaker. There's a lot of stuff up in the air. And that's kind of the theme of this particular devlog, is that there's a lot of stuff up in the air. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. There's always a whole bunch of small things to do, especially when you're, building a game, either by yourself or with a small team. And it's kind of never ending. So my tendency is not to get around to this kind of thing, as I said, but I think it's good to do. So the last time I did one of these, I think I had announced that I'd assembled a small team of people, 6 people potentially on board to be working on this, including myself, and probably the most significant update since then is that that's no longer the case. So over 2024, I spent a lot of my time working on the game, putting together and refining a pitch deck, approaching publishers, and trying to raise funding for kind of the next phase of this. Because of the state of things, and also because I think, your first time attempting to do that is quite likely not going to be raging success. Move now to trying to rescope the game a bit. I think maybe it got a bit too big too fast. And trying to move forward with a different plan that still meets all of the criteria for, fulfilling what I want to do with it. I guess the reason being primarily that things have changed is that what I wanted to do was going to be really big. I needed a bigger team of people to do it, and in order to do that, we would have needed a significant amount of money. Everybody needs to be paid in order to work. And the way that it panned out was that I had ended up getting a crew of people on who were all really fantastic and eager to help out, which was great. We didn't commence any further planned scoped work on it because we didn't have funding. That's what I was trying to secure in order to get things going. So now I think the way forward is, in the meantime anyway, we've paired back to a team of 2. It's me and Joel again, the game's composer. And I'm going to try to reconfigure things and sort of see where we're at. So if anyone, who had been working on it, or had been, lined up to work on it is watching this. I've said it before in private, but publicly, thanks again for believing in this game. That's how I wanted things to work out, and it hasn't. But you never quite know how things are going to work. That's sort of how life is, and just continue on and see what happens. This room that I'm sort of tentatively wandering around in is full of placeholder graphics, which are actually used for a different kind of platform in the game, but here are used for falling platforms. So if you stand on one of these guys too long, you fall off. And then hopefully reset from the correct point. Falling platforms, I think, without trying to wax too poetic about it, have been occupying a lot of space in my mind recently, in a literal sense, because I've been adding them to and implementing them in the game, and also kind of metaphorically, for all the things that falling platforms might mean or symbolize. In the game, it's something that I want and need to have present, and they've been a good, fun challenge, but they've still got some kind of creaky bits, particularly fall-off points and what happens if you are wandering around on these things and you end up, back somewhere where you shouldn't be, that kind of thing. Anytime you add a new feature to anything, if you're building a product or, a one-off small website or a game, there are always going to be so many design challenges that you don't think of when you actually conceive of and then even start trying to build the thing that you're building. Anyone who's ever worked on anything knows that that's the case. Because of the amount of spare time that I have to work on this, which is very little, and in the interest of keeping things kind of scrappy, game's still technically a prototype. I don't generally do design documents for anything that are any further than notes in the margin of a sketchbook and maybe some drawings, which has been okay so far. Moving into proper development, I think that I'll be a little more conscientious about that kind of thing, but as it's written, life's a great balancing act. You gotta prioritize and make sure that you're working on the right things. My, acumen for quoting literature doesn't necessarily extend beyond Dr. Seuss, but I think that maybe that's okay, because there can be a lot of genius in simplicity, and I think that that's something to keep in mind when designing anything. So there's been a lot of back to the drawing board lately. There's been a lot of moving targets and a lot of falling platforms. And, I don't mean to make out like I'm, feeling sad about it or anything, or, wanting any kind of anything for it. That's just the state of things, and that's how the process goes, and that's okay. And you go back to the drawing board, you try again. But I do think that I lost my train of thought trying to dodge that bullet so that I wouldn't die and reset. I think that one of the things that I'm thinking about a lot in regard to falling platforms is that if you linger on any one too long, you can end up falling. which means you need to keep moving. And I think that the order of the day, or the year, as it were, or the next few months anyway, is to proceed at a healthy pace and get done what can get done in a reasonable and sane way. I have a cat. And I think that that's going to be really good moving forward. I'm going to pursue some other avenues for funding and see how we get on from there. But in the meantime, it's just kind of steady on. So that was a very long, I don't know, preamble, whatever. I guess the general sort of form of these has always just been me wandering around in here and sort of just meandering verbally as well. And, you know, again, that's about as far as I'm going to go with it. It doesn't really need to be any more scripted, I don't think. From there, I think it's probably worthwhile just to kind of go over some of the things that have changed in the game since I last did one of these. There are a few that come to mind and probably more that I'll miss. But first and foremost, visual stuff. The UI's been updated. You can see in the top left, I should say more accurately, like the heads-up display has been updated. In addition to that, I have updated the camera, so it's much smoother and it's a little more cinematic in that it's not always just centering the player. Still a little bit easing on the camera, but it's a bit snappier than it used to be. I think these are really good changes. One of the things also that had been kind of plaguing me a little bit was that I'd shifted to developing primarily on Mac OS, which presents its own set of minor challenges and hiccups in regard to GameMaker in some ways. And building for Mac, I don't need to get into that. Everyone who's developed a game knows that that is harder than building for Windows. But I've been doing the development work on a Mac, and there are all these graphical hitches that were bothering me. So for the meantime, I think at some point this will need a more robust solution, but I've just locked the camera's aspect ratio to whole multipliers, and it just, everything runs way smoother. So the game is set to target, the ideal is probably 1080p. My laptop's resolution is a lot wonkier than that. I think a 14-inch MacBook is something like 1552 or some odd number like that. So anyway, this is just running at 3x native resolution rather than 4 because it can't hit it. So that's been really nice, actually. It's been really good to just have everything look much smoother and a bit more well-tuned. This area is a bit quieter, so it's good to highlight. Running in debug mode here, one of the UI changes, which is I'm experimenting with not only color and shape association with the 4 elemental powers that the character will eventually receive, but also sound. So when you switch between them, they play different notes. The idea is to make, a fuller implementation of that moving forward. But for now, it just plays those 4. It'd be nice, at some stage to have it harmonize with whatever the music of whatever scene you're in, or if it didn't have to, that'd be cool too. But for now, And the idea there is that at some stage as well, there will be a situation, or there will be situations in the game where there will be sort of a rhythm game aspect to switching elemental powers in time with certain sequences in the game, and so I want to have as many different cues as possible for players to be able to navigate those situations. There's a stamina bar now, so when you dash it refills, so you can actually know like what the cooldown is on that. Still have a whole variety of missing animations. There's no like inertia, there's no easing out of the dash. That's something that needs to be resolved. One of the things with jumping and falling like into those makeshift pits in that debug area back up here is that there's a whole variety of small animations that need to be resolved for that. Falling between pits and then hitting other pits and not having that collision detected, and what happens if I try to jump off one of these while I'm standing on it in the midst of one. And anyway, as always, there's just a whole slew of small things that need some kind of resolution. But I think, like I said, I kind of have to go wherever my heart is when I'm working on this in order to be most productive. If I'm hitting my head against something, I do need to shift gears and work on something else. So right now it's about mechanics and balancing and actually adding in, as funny as it sounds, more gameplay. So that, means working out more situations that require usage of the elemental abilities and coming up with more traversal and interaction sort of scenarios, falling platforms, moving platforms, more kind of like minor puzzle solving in traversal, more combat. These aren't actually set up to be, I think, defeatable at all at the moment. No. But, running a gauntlet of these kind of turrets and having to deal with that. And then just building out levels and focusing more on one area in terms of art assets and see how far we can go with that. The reason why it's funny having to sort of shift gears back into adding more mechanical kind of gameplay scenarios into it is that the prototype for this was developed as part of a narrative game development grant. So the focus primarily to get it into its current state has been to work on world building and this kind of environmental narrative that the game is trying to present. So yeah, that's the short of it, I suppose. Working between refining what's here and adding new features in a way that's robust enough that they're, not going to fall down and break, which is just good practice anyway. So I think I'll just continue on that course and then hopefully do a few more rounds of playtesting, just friends and family kind of stuff, and see where we're at. But this is, I think, going to probably become an increasingly community-driven effort, and I'm going to try to do as much of this sort of process stuff as I can. I really like longer form video because I'm so good at it. Over short form video, because I'm exceptionally bad at that. And I think it is helpful for me anyway, just to have some time to sit with the game and babble about it a bit, and see what comes out. If I don't have a plan ahead of time, then what I end up saying is more off the cuff, and tends to be more valuable for me as well. Oh, I redid the map as well, which I think is a lot more successfully illustrative of the game world. And I don't think it's going to really get much bigger than this for a while. I'm focus on this kind of coastline area because that's the first part of the game's story. Yeah, so anyway, where I was going with that was that to that end, if anybody who's watching this is interested and would like to follow along, I do my best to update as frequently as I can. We're mostly on Blue Sky these days, given all the recent T's and C's changes with Meta and their current stance towards the world and identity and the value of human beings. I don't know what our fate will be on Instagram and Threads. We're also on Mastodon, and if you're watching this, it's probably on our YouTube channel. Been trying to post on TikTok as well, but like I said, short form video content's not really my strong suit, so I'm going to keep doing that, but I don't know if it'll be any more varied than, what I have that appears elsewhere. So if you're interested, pick whatever is appropriate, comfortable, and interesting for you. And if you like what you see, feel free to let us know. I guess all that to say, I think for the time being, we're gonna just keep being small and keep being pretty indie, whatever that means. And this is two guys on opposite sides of the planet making a thing in their spare time at this stage. That's where we're at. And that's okay. I think that whatever it is what it is. Anyway, that's enough of my rambling. If you made it through this far, thank you for taking a look and listening to me wander around. Sincerely, though. Yeah, I appreciate it. Cool. All right, well, stay tuned, and I will keep you all posted. All right, thanks.